In a year filled with big name injuries, now we have George Kittle hurt yet again. Mike Thomas, will he return to his next game? Kenny Golladay is now hurt, and what to make of Christian McCaffrey moving forward. We'll get into all of that and go over all of the big name performances for week 8 and some of the best buy lows heading into week 9. In fact, I'll give you my top 10 buy low players, 10 names to go get right now before week 9 kicks off. Did Dalvin Cook just climb to the 1.01 in all fantasy football formats? Redraft Dynasty, we'll talk about that. And next we'll also touch on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. What to do with Clyde. Do you sell him? Do you buy him low in leagues where you don't own him? Do you avoid him entirely? Also coming up, where do you rank DK Metcalf heading into week 9 on? And where do you value him in 2021? If you're in a Dynasty league, what trade value does he have? If you're drafting today in a Dynasty startup, where would you take DK Metcalf? Dynasty content is going to ramp up massively, really quickly here on the Fantasy Football Show. Beginning December 1 on the Fantasy Football Show, you'll be absorbing more content than you could imagine, because not only will I be cranking out the redraft content, but I'm doubling down and creating double the content. Dynasty content is here on December 1. Get ready. J.K. Dobbins and Zack Moss finally having breakout games. Will that continue heading into week 9 and beyond? And of course, we're going to touch on the injury to Stanley and what that does to Lamar Jackson. Does Lamar Jackson still have some of the best buy low value heading into week 9 and beyond? And what do you do with Lamar heading into Dynasty? Joe Burrow, Herbert are the future of the quarterback position in the NFL, to go along with Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen. Where does Tua fit into that? Tua got a win in his first NFL start, but how much of that win had to do with Tua? And how out of control is the Tua hype right now? Does he really have Herbert and Burrow type upside in fantasy football? What to do with Swift? And who are the top 5 players in fantasy football moving forward? It's all coming up. The Fantasy Football Show begins now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show. Smitty. Take a lap. George Kittle limped to the sideline in the fourth quarter after making a pretty good play, and he was seen with trainers right after, and then he eventually hobbled to the locker room. Not a good sign, but we will have more information for you as we, I think, approach probably late tomorrow. So check back in with me here at the Fantasy Football Show. But not good news. Hopefully Kittle will be okay. He seems to struggle with staying healthy because he's such an aggressive player and he's so hard on his own body. But more to come. DK Metcalf has now entered that top 10 overall value, in my opinion, in redraft, dynasty, you name it. He's only going to get better. The guy's as quick as anybody else on the field, and it's nearly impossible to tackle him unless you trip him up or you have 2 or 3 defenders that are able to take him out at once. 12 of 15, 161, 2 TDs, in a potent offense with a quarterback that isn't going anywhere for a handful of years. This is a top 10 overall player in fantasy football. Redraft, dynasty, doesn't matter. And while on that note and that topic of who the top 5, 10 players overall are heading into the remainder of the season and for 2021 and for Dynasty, I think we got to talk about both of these guys. Has Dalvin Cook vaulted to the top 1, 2, 3 overall for Dynasty? I think it's safe to say that he is a locked and loaded top 1 to 3, and I put 1 in there, 1 to 3 player overall moving forward from week 9 on. He's a touchdown machine, ran the ball 30 times for 163 and 3 TDs with 63 receiving yards to add to that. And another score, a total of 4 touchdowns for Dalvin Cook in week 8. Now, I don't know about you, but that constitutes the number 1 overall pick if drafting today moving forward. Now, Christian McCaffrey, I think we got to throw him in the mix, but let's go to the big board and map out our top 5 overall moving forward, and we'll kick around the dynasty conversation with this as well. We'll hit this from the redraft and the dynasty perspective. We'll start off with the redraft perspective. The 1.01 in redraft. Moving forward, the 1.01, I think, has to be Dalvin Cook as of this moment. The guy is on fire. He's a touchdown machine. He was a touchdown machine before he missed time and went into the bye week. 2 TDs in week 1, 1 in week 2, 1 in week 3, 2 in week 4, 1 in week 5. Didn't play week 6, had a bye week, scores 3 TDs. Well, actually, I'm sorry, 4 in week 8. The guy's never had a game this year without a TD, and he's had 3 multiple TD games. This dude is a beast. Imagine if he got more receiving yards. That's his receiving column. 2, -2, 8, 18, 16, 24, 63. Imagine what he'd have. Look at the yardage, 181, 130, 147. I mean, he just tore Green Bay to shreds. 147, 5.9 a pop, 3 TDs. The dude is the best player in fantasy football right now. You cannot argue that TD column. You cannot argue this point, I think, at this moment. Take a lap if you try. I think number 2 for me, and I know that many people would have Kamara here, but I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey. This is moving forward for weeks 9 on. It doesn't take into account anything else but weeks 9 on this particular ranking. So I'm going to put Christian McCaffrey here. I think Alvin Kamara is a lock for number 3. He's already had his bye week, unlike Christian McCaffrey, so there's something to consider there. So obviously factor that in if you can't afford a loss and you were drafting today moving forward. The bye week's a big deal. Here's where it gets pretty tricky in redraft. Do you go Henry? Do you go with Davante Adams? Do you go with Hopkins? Do you go with a guy like DK? There are still a lot of Aaron Jones fans out there. I'm going to say Henry's the safest redraft number 4 overall. And that looks like a darn good top 4. And even this could be argued in this range right here. I don't know that you could put Henry 1 with these 3 options there. I suppose you could. Wouldn't be that crazy. But this is a good-looking top 4. It's pretty hard to argue that Davante Adams isn't number 5. But I'd like to see someone try in the comments, because the dude is on fire. Davante Adams has 10 TDs and he's only played 6 games. It's crazy. You have to put him in the top 5. Maybe he deserves number 4. Now, in Dynasty, if we were to change this to Dynasty, what do we do? Do we move Christian McCaffrey up to 1? I think so. Do we move Henry down potentially here in the 5-6 range? I kind of think so in Dynasty, because he's such a big dude, and I think he's got maybe 2 more years left if he's lucky at the rate he's going with his size, the kind of impact his body takes when he hits the ground over and over, and the way that people have to tackle him going for his legs because he's such a massive man. He'll be lucky, I think, to get 2 more elite runs before he hits some kind of serious injury. You can call that bold, you can call that way too predictive, but I think it's safe in Dynasty to start thinking like that. If you're in a Dynasty league, wide receivers have more value, have more security. And so I still like Kamara here. I still like Cook in this range, but where do we put Barkley? Is Barkley here? I think if we had to write out the Dynasty, I think we got to redo this. We can't even use arrows. There's so much movement. So Christian McCaffrey, the clear 1 overall. I'm going to put Cook here. As badly as I want to go Barkley here, I think the injury scares me enough to put Kamara number 3. I think he's young enough. I like him there. Now, Barkley, I think, has to go in the 4 to 7 range. So if you want to hold him out of your top 4 or 5, I could understand why. But I myself put Barkley here. He's similar to, I think, AP in terms of he could come off this injury and be the same old guy, the same player. His quad strength alone makes his knees very, very sound and tight. I think his knees will respond very, very, very well because of the thigh strength that he has. Your thigh muscles have a lot to do with how tight that knee joint and that fitting is. And when you snap your ACL, sometimes a guy like Barkley isn't even using his ACL to keep his joints tight. It's actually his quad doing more work than his ACL of keeping that knee very, very tight. So it's almost like they have to repair the ACL when his quads and strength around the muscles wrapped around his knee. He doesn't even need an ACL. That's what happened with Garrison Hurst. Anybody knows who Garrison Hurst was, the San Francisco 49er, the Cardinal. He actually came out of college without an ACL. They figured it out in a test. They didn't even know that his ACL was torn in high school, but his thigh strength, his muscles wrapped around his knee and his thighs were so strong, he didn't even need an ACL. He had a tighter fitting knee than anybody else. So I think Barkley could rebound big from this, and maybe we talk to Dr. Raj about that and talk about his knee. I could understand people wanting Adams here. I can understand people wanting Henry here. I myself am still going to go with MT. I think you got to go with Adams here. And here I'm going Henry. I think you got to worry a little bit more about that longevity with his build. But I'm going to go Henry there. All right, let's put number 8 and 9 over here. Again, this is Dynasty. Here are the top 7. Christian McCaffrey, Cook, Kamara, Barkley, MT, Adams, Henry. Who's 8? Is it DK? Is it Zeke Elliott? Is it a guy like Ridley, Hopkins? Who am I going to put here? I think I probably would roll with DK. And then I think Elliott. I still believe in Elliott. I think he has a handful of great years left. Dak will be back next year. And then at 10, I put Hopkins. That's pretty hard to argue that top 10. I mean, you can argue it, and I'm okay with you having somebody elsewhere, but I mean, to sit here and say that something on here is off base, I think that's a hard argument to make. Every single one of these 3 or 4 are deserving to be in the 1, 2, 3, 4 spot. Everyone here, even Hopkins could climb to 5. MT could drop to 10. I wouldn't call you crazy. If you had Elliott number 4 or 5 or 3, I wouldn't call you insane at all. I wouldn't object to you putting DK in the top 5 or 6 or putting him at 10. There's an argument to be made for all of this. And you know what else? I think Mahomes has value that is inside the top 10. But do you draft him that high? No, of course you do not. But single-handedly, he can win you a week on any given Sunday. And on top of that, Mahomes will be with you for over a decade. So if we're talking dynasty, it makes a big difference where you value Mahomes. Now, again, don't draft him in the top 10. You do not have to. I'm merely making a point on the board to show you where his value kind of lives. And you can take full advantage of getting him deep in the second round, unless he finishes the year with 50 touchdowns, which is possible for Mahomes. You will find him most likely in the mid to late second round in 2021 drafts, redraft or dynasty. But I'm telling you right now, he's worthy of being in the top 10 for all players. Let's talk about Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I know everybody's dying to have this conversation. Am I worried? Absolutely. Are they using him properly? No, they are not. Now, do I think the talent's there? Am I worried about Bell? I'm not that worried about Bell. I'm worried about the usage. How many carries are they going to give him week in and week out? Will he be consistent? Will people put him on the bench and then he goes off and people are even more frustrated? Now, I'm nowhere close to benching Clyde yet, but am I willing to call him a top 10 overall player moving forward? We adjust and we adapt. Right now, I worry enough about the volume, and that's part of the package. That's part of the player. You can't separate situation from player. They are one and the same, and right now we have to be worried about Clyde. Buy low if it feels right. You have the flexibility to do so, and if you own them, what are you going to do? Sell them for a very, very low price? You probably can't do that. You have to ride the wave out. Next up, let's stay with the Kansas City Chiefs. Tyreek Hill finally getting a big day, 98 yards and 2 TDs. He'll continue to do that as Patrick Mahomes continues to deliver. Look at this, 416 and 5 TDs. Mahomes can single-handedly win you a league. This is why we drafted him in the 18 to 7 overall range on average. He can win you a week single-handedly. He won me about half of my leagues in week 8 because I own him in about half of the leagues that I do. Look at the trio. Travis Kelce going crazy, 109 and a touchdown. Let's see how I did in the league where I drafted all Kansas City Chiefs players. I probably had a pretty big day in that league. And if you missed it, I drafted a team with no players but all the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the only player, I'm talking I have the backups at everybody. The only player I don't have is Lev Bell because this all went down in the offseason and I don't have any pieces to trade anymore. 145.94 is how I did in that league. I will get a 0 on the bye week because I own literally no other players but every single Kansas City Chief but Lev Bell. It'll be fun if this wins it all. Burrow continuing to impress. 249, 2 TDs. I think he's going to be a star. Go ahead and buy low on Mark Andrews coming off a 32-yard event. He will probably be pretty attainable in a trade, pretty reasonable. Kareem Hunt didn't have a great day. And a lot of people calling for, when Chubb coming back, Hunt's going to be put on the bench. Remember that Hunt blew up when Chubb was in the lineup. They had such a dynamic 1-2 punch that it actually made Hunt more valuable. So we will see if everybody abandons the Kareem Hunt train when Chubb comes back, because that's when Hunt was doing his best. I buy low in the right spot, but there is some concern that Chubb could come back and get all the work. I don't think it'll happen, and I still think he can be a league winner even when Chubb returns. When will Chubb return? The Browns have a bye week in week 9, so there's some chatter that Chubb could return after that bye week, so week 10 against Houston. We'll see. I'll update you as more info comes rolling in. Lamar, buy low. He had a tough matchup. He did pretty well. He had a rushing touchdown called back. It was a big play, and that changed the momentum, kind of changed the dynamic of the game. He was doing pretty well considering the matchup, and I do buy low. I think he could still be a league winner at the current value. We got to be worried about DeAndre Swift. This is what we worried about. Detroit does not know how to make big name running backs. Since Barry Sanders and maybe a small year and a half or whatever of Reggie Bush, we've literally been given no good Detroit running backs. They can't groom them or grow them in Detroit. They just can't, and it's usage. He rushed the ball 6 times for 1 yard. I still buy low if the price is right, but I don't make a trade just for him. He'd have to be a throw-in. I might take him in a 2-for-1 where I'm getting the 2 players, but I'm not in the business of going directly after Swift. J.K. Dobbins and my boy Zack Moss. I can't tell you how many people have been calling for my head in my live streams every time I talk about J.K. Dobbins and Moss. 15 totes, 113 for J.K. We don't know if they're going to have sentimental reasons to give the job back to Ingram or give him a ton of work. Gus Edwards is still involved. It's still a very cloudy situation with no guarantees whatsoever, but J.K. is magical. He is a win-a-league move if for whatever reason people dropped him, and a lot of people did heading into week 8. I don't know why. I told everybody to keep their eyes peeled and grab and swoop in and grab this guy if he's on your waiver wire. If you didn't listen and you left him on waivers, shame on you. Take a lap, but go get him. Put a waiver claim in for him. Zack Moss got dropped too in a lot of leagues, 81 and 2 TDs. But Smitty, he's not getting the carries. I can't help with that. I don't coach the team. All I can tell you is the talent is there for both of them. And if starting, and there's a good chance that these guys get more starts, I don't know if they will right away. I don't make those decisions, but I'll be on top of it, and you can find me all week long talking about it. But if they get the go-ahead, the green light again, the keys to the lineup, if they're the kings of their castle each week they will do well and drop the necessary loads on a weekly basis. You can count on it. Don't count on it. Nothing's for sure, but you know what I mean. Tua, a lot of Tua hype. And, the win didn't have much to do with him. He's pretty pedestrian, 12 of 22. He looked okay on his touchdown pass. I think a lot of hype is behind Tua. Don't buy into it. I am not calling him a paper tiger for the long term, but this is no Herbert. This is no Joe Burrow. This is a very different situation. Don't buy into Tua turning into a Burrow or Herbert as a rookie. It's not going to happen. His future could be bright. I'm not ready to determine that yet. We already talked about Henry a ton. I think he gets better as the year moves along. A.J. Brown is a good buy low. I'll talk about him in a minute with my buy low list, but 4 of 7, 24 yards and a TD. People don't like 24-yard 1 TD games. They're going to freak out. Corey Davis getting 100 yards makes people freak out. And you're going to take advantage, aren't you? This is a big hit to Lamar and the Ravens now. I think it's important to remember that the Ravens are 5-1 heading into this week. They're a good team, and they can turn things around. This is not going to help, but I think Lamar's still a very good buy low, which you'll see in a second with my buy low list. Have a little patience, man. Adam Thielen, potentially buy low, 27 yards. People might react. People are reactive. Jonathan Taylor, I'm going to talk about him in a second. Stand by. Diggs, stand by. Josh Allen, stand by. You can bet all of these guys are going to be on my next screen. Okay, so I lied. I have more than 10 players, but let's go with QBs. Lamar, Allen, buy low on both of these guys if you can. If you lost Dak, you're hurting at quarterback, or you have an extra piece, a dilemma piece that you struggle. Do I start? Do I bench this guy? Like Robbie Anderson I always use. If you have somebody you're always struggling to either start or bench, use that extra piece on your bench to upgrade your quarterback if you can. And I think Allen is very, very attainable right now. Lamar is probably going to be more expensive. Allen, people are really doubting him moving forward. Is there some risk? Sure. But I take the chance that he's still a top 5 quarterback moving forward for weeks 9 on. At running back, McCaffrey. Now, you might not, I put him 1 because he has the most impact if you can trade for him. His owner may be at a point where he can't lose another game. He's worried. Try poking around before we get more information about McCaffrey this coming week. And if you can weather through maybe not having him or him being slow starting, coming back, make sure you're built for that. Aaron Jones. Go buy low on this guy before news starts crack-a-lacking tomorrow. I think you got to be also built to be able to handle some potential, slow starting or maybe another missed game, a setback, whatever. You have to be prepared for that. Elliott, I still go buy low. There's risk involved, of course, but you got to be prepared and built for that. Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb. Go after Nick Chubb before news starts breaking about his return. He's going to have a bye week. Then does he return in week 10? I think he could. Sanders, I bet you never thought you'd see that. Sanders on my buy low list. I told you guys in the beginning, I don't hate Sanders. I didn't like his draft value. You guys were drafting at like 11 to 14 overall. I didn't like that. He's clearly busted from that value. But guess what? Every man's trash is another man's fantasy football treasure, and Sanders can be had pretty cheaply right now by frustrated owners. A.J. Brown, buy low. People don't like 20-something yards and a TD. Diggs, he did have 90-something yards, yeah, but people are frustrated he didn't get a touchdown. They're worried about this man, Josh Allen. So I go poking around at Diggs. Ridley, I buy low, but no, he's hurt. He may miss some time, but he's worth buying low. He can miss 2 weeks. He could be out 3 full weeks from now and come back, the 4th week. MT, buy low. MT owners might be mad right now and can't afford any more crazy business going on, and they want to deal him. Lockett, people are going to be upset about a bad week. Go get Lockett. Chark, Thielen had a bad week. Go get him. DJ Moore. Do you see the theme here? You struggle a little bit. There's an open window. The window could close on every one of these guys. Not everybody might bounce back or do well moving forward. That's why you have to buy low. You have to build the risk into your trade. But right here, these are wonderful opportunities for you to revamp your team from week 9 on. Now get after it. That's going to do it. Please comment below, subscribe if you're new, tell your friends, tell your grandma, tell everybody about the show. My social handles are above. You can always find me at smitty1.com if you get lost, but make sure you subscribe and order a phone call at heysmitty.com so you and I can talk about your team, come up with trade ideas. It's only $15 a call. And for those that don't know, I have an exclusive YouTube membership group. If you go to my main YouTube page, click the blue join button. It's $9.99 a month. You can cancel anytime. You get exclusive videos. You get 2 Zoom calls with me a week where a small group of us are on a video call. You can turn off your camera. You don't have to be on camera. You can show the wall if you want, but we all talk fantasy football and work on your problems in a small, close-knit group. And on top of that, you get exclusive Discord access to me and the whole group that's in this little close-knit community. The Zoom calls are after every Thursday night game and after every Monday night game. So get on over to the homepage of my show, click that blue join button and become a part of the exclusive family here on YouTube. And let me know in the comments how you like the new format of the show. Is this not the best fantasy football show on YouTube? Let me know down below.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty!